So, we have covered the basics. Let's get into the deep end. React 19 introduced actions. Can you tell me what they are and how they simplify data mutations?
Actions are a huge quality of life improvement. Think of them as a cleaner, more integrated way to handle data mutations. Instead of manually creating separate API endpoints and managing state with useState and useEffect for every form submission or data change, you can now define an asynchronous function directly in your component. This function, the action, handles the data mutation on the server. React takes care of the network request for you, giving you a smooth, single-function approach for both client and server-side logic.
That sounds a lot like the old school form submissions. What makes it React and not just a plain HTML form with an action attribute?
That's a great question. The magic is in the integration. React wraps these actions in a way that gives us some very powerful new hooks, like useFormStatus and useOptimistic. useFormStatus gives us real-time feedback on the form's state, whether it's pending, for example, which is perfect for disabling a submit button. And useOptimistic is pure wizardry. It lets us update the UI before the server confirms the change, so the user gets instant feedback. But if the server call fails, React automatically rolls back the change. It's the best of both worlds, a fast UI with a reliable backend.
Okay, I'm sold on the magic. Speaking of magic, what's this about a React compiler and the end of memoization hooks like useMemo and useCallback?
I know, it sounds almost too good to be true. The React compiler is a new tool that automatically memoizes your components. Traditionally, we've had to manually wrap functions and values in useCallback and useMemo to prevent unnecessary re-renders. The compiler analyzes your code during the build process and determines what needs to be memoized, doing all the heavy lifting for you. This means we can write cleaner, more idiomatic React without worrying about performance micro-optimizations, and the compiler will ensure our apps are performant.
Impressive. Let's switch gears. Explain the concept of server components. How do they differ from traditional server-side rendering, SSR?
Server components are a fundamental shift in how we think about rendering. With traditional SSR, you render the entire page on the server and then hydrate it on the client, which sends a large chunk of HTML and JavaScript. Server components, on the other hand, run entirely on the server and send down only the rendered HTML. There's no client-side JavaScript bundle for them. This means a much smaller bundle size, faster initial load times, and better performance, especially on slow networks.
So if a component is a server component, how do you handle user interaction, like a button click?
That's where the useClient directive comes in. You mark a component with useClient at the top of the file, which tells React to run that component and its children on the client. It's a way to create an island of interactivity within a server-rendered page. For instance, a form would be a client component, while the page it's on could be a server component. It's a powerful way to mix and match to get the best performance where it matters most.
Let's say I'm building a social media feed. I need to show posts and comments, and I want to fetch and display the comments for a post asynchronously. How would you handle that with a React 19 feature?
I'd reach for the new use hook. This is a powerful new hook that allows us to read the value of a promise directly in the render logic. So for your feed, I could have a post component that renders, and then inside it, I could use const comments equals use fetch comments post ID. React would then suspend rendering until the fetch comments promise resolves, and the comments value would be available. This is a huge departure from the old useEffect approach with loading states. It's much more declarative and easier to read.
What if you wanted to pass an arf down to a component in React 19? I hear forward ref is not the way anymore.
You've been keeping up. The Forward Ref API is deprecated in React 19. Now you can just pass the ref as a regular prop. It's a simple yet significant simplification. The ref prop is no longer a special, reserved prop and can be handled just like any other prop, making the code much cleaner and more intuitive.
Let's talk about styling. How does React 19 improve how we handle style sheets?
React 19 introduces built-in support for loading style sheets. You can now use the link rel equals style sheet tag directly in your component's JSX. React takes care of the rendering, ensuring the styles are correctly loaded and preventing flashes of unstyled content. It's a nice improvement that makes managing CSS links a first-class citizen of the component tree, similar to how we've always handled other HTML elements.
We've discussed a lot about new features, but let's take a step back. What's the main philosophical shift from React 18 to React 19 that a developer should be aware of?
The big shift is towards more declarative and compiler-driven optimization. In React 18 and earlier, we often had to manually manage side effects and performance with hooks like useEffect, useMemo, and useCallback. React 19, with features like the compiler, actions, and the use hook, aims to move much of that complexity behind the scenes. The goal is for developers to focus on what they want the UI to be, and for React to handle the how more intelligently, resulting in cleaner code and better performance out of the box.
Last one. The new useDeferredValue hook in React 19 has some interesting changes. How does it differ from its previous version, and when would you use it?
That's a great question. It's a subtle but important change. Previously, useDeferredValue was often paired with useState and would defer a state update. In React 19, its primary use case is specifically for deferring a prop. So if you have a slow rendering component that receives a prop, instead of having the entire parent component re-render slowly, you can wrap that prop in useDeferredValue. The component will then render immediately with the old value, while React works on re-rendering with the new deferred value in the background. It's a powerful tool for keeping the UI responsive without blocking the main thread.
Well, that was a very thorough and insightful discussion. Thank you for your time. Your understanding of the latest React features is impressive.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been a pleasure to discuss these topics with you. I'm genuinely excited about the future of React and the opportunities these new features present.
We're excited too. We'll be in touch with you soon about the next steps. Is there anything else you'd like to ask before we conclude?
Just a quick question. What does the team's current development cycle look like? And how do you envision these new React 19 features fitting into the existing codebase? I'm curious about the adoption strategy.
That's an excellent question. We're currently planning a phased rollout, starting with new projects and then gradually refactoring key components. We'll discuss this in more detail if you move forward. Thank you again.
Sounds great. Thank you again for the opportunity. I look forward to hearing from you.